I never meant to save an alpha. One breath, and I broke him forever. The edge of the city smells like iron and dust and old rain that never properly fell. There's a cracked loading dock behind an abandoned warehouse, and I'm hugging the shadow where the yellow safety line has peeled up in scabs, counting heartbeats. 1, 2, 3. A runner's rhythm. A coward's, if you ask anyone who's never had to disappear. Name's Nora Saint. The irony isn't lost on me. I work hard to be nobody. Hood up, eyes down, steps soft. Omegas like me don't last if we shine. We either get claimed, caged, or chewed up by other people's myths. So I keep to alleys, not avenues, and I'd have kept moving if a bottle hadn't shattered hard enough to send a fleck of glass against my cheek. Voices, 4, maybe 5, snapped into focus. The kind of voices that come with knuckles and debts. Hold him. He's slipping. Get the net. There was a growl underneath all of it. Not human, not quite. It reverberated against the metal roll-up door and into my bones. I should have backed away. Instead, I edged closer, stupidity and curiosity practicing their complicated duet. They were in the mouth of the alley, figures in work jackets and cheap masks, the kind you buy by the dozen. They were circling a man who didn't so much stand as hold the ground by will alone. Big shoulders, dark hair matted at the temple. He moved like danger has lessons to teach, and he'd aced every one. 2 came at him and he put them down. Elbow, knee, the clean crack of somebody's certainty breaking. And still, something about him wavered. A flicker behind the eyes. Like he was there and not there. I could feel him without looking. Alphas are weather fronts. They change the air. My skin prickled. My lungs tightened like I'd run a mile. Don't breathe, I told myself. Don't pull him in. Then one of the masked men swung a chain and it bit across his back. He stumbled, caught himself on the wall, and for a split second his face tipped toward the yellow light spilling from a street lamp. Storm gray eyes, shocked with pain and something I didn't recognize until later. Emptiness, a hollow that shouldn't have existed in a man like that. Like a window smashed from the inside. Someone shouted, "Get him down before she gets here." And another snapped, "She's already gone, he's open." I didn't know who she was. I didn't want to know. My palm slipped on the brick. The scrape of my boot against grit was louder than a gunshot. His head turned. Those gray eyes found me. Not a look, an impact. Something invisible and electric leapt between us, and my throat decided to breathe on its own. Inhale, my scent uncoiled like heat spiraling off a kettle. I felt it go. The way you feel a word leave your mouth and wish you could catch it. Honey and cedar, winter citrus, panic burning at the edges. It rolled into the alley on the same current that carried my name farther than I ever wanted it to go. And the moment it reached him, the world changed. He froze, not the full-body stillness of a predator before the strike, but the chaos before silence kind. His eyes flared, not with want but with recognition and terror, as if I'd reached through his ribs and touched a live wire he'd kept hidden there. Then a sound tore out of him, a raw keening that drove the masked men back 2 steps and drove me into the wall. I didn't see anything break. I felt it. A tensile snap in the air, a thread pulled too tight and failing. I've never believed in the old stories the way packs tell them at. Fire pits with teeth flashing and promises made to constellations. But I swear I heard something tear that wasn't muscle or mercy. Cade, one of the masked men shouted, and dropped his chain like it had burned him. Cade, so that was his name. The one the city would know if it knew anything honest. They ran. Not because I scared them, because he did. But his terror wasn't facing them anymore. It was facing me. He came a step closer, and every nerve in my body lit up with a contradictory chorus. Run, stay, hide, reach. The space between us buzzed like summer power lines. I could see the outline of a life on him, the ghost of a bond like a faint silver seam along his throat, and in that seam, absence. He looked bereft, unmoored. The word came to me before I could rationalize it. Broken. I lifted my hands, palms out. Don't. He didn't touch me. He just breathed me in like oxygen after a blackout. The anguish in his face fractured and reassembled into something else. Still feral, still too much, but coherent. I could almost watch him claw his way back to himself with my scent as a handhold. My body, traitor, softened. My instincts, bigger traitor, tilted toward him with the subtlety of a tide. Cade. Another voice, clearer, crackling with command. Boots thundered in from the street. More men, these in black with armbands that marked them as his. Pack. The right kind. Not masks and cheap jackets. He didn't even look at them. He was looking at me like I was the shoreline and he'd just remembered waves. A man with a scar down his jaw took in the scene in a single sweep. His gaze cut from Cade to me and sharpened like glass. What did you do? I couldn't answer. My tongue felt too big in my mouth. I hadn't meant to do anything. I'd only breathed. But every inhale pulled him steadier, and every exhale seemed to rub that invisible seam raw. He made a low sound, ugly with relief, and I felt it in my bones as if we shared a ribcage. Get her away, someone hissed. Bring her closer, someone else snapped, just as fast. Cade's hand lifted a fraction, not reaching, just anchoring the air between us. Don't, he said. And the single syllable was ragged but lethal. It stopped his pack like a barricade. The man with the scar, Beta, by the scent of iron control, shifted tactics. His eyes never left my face. Name. Nora, I managed. Nora Saint. Saint made his mouth twitch like fate had told a joke at the wrong time. You need to go. Cade swayed, like the alley was a boat, and he'd found the only stable plank. She stays. She can't, the Beta said, low. You know what this looks like? Cade's focus flicked sideways at last, a glance that would have cut most men in half. I know what it feels like. He drew a breath, and when he spoke again, the words sounded like gravel-made language. There's nothing left. Do you understand me? Nothing, except... His gaze hit mine again and held. Except this. The Beta's jaw worked. He looked at me and his scent shifted. Anger, caution, calculation. You. He gestured at the space at Cade's shoulder. 2 feet, no closer. If he lunges, you move. If you run... Then he'll follow, I said, because we both knew it. The truth hung there, bleak and inevitable as rust. Then he'll fall apart, the Beta corrected, and in his correction I heard a plea he didn't want anyone to notice. He softened a hair. Please. As if I needed the please. As if I hadn't already felt the way his edges unfrayed and rewove when I inhaled. I swallowed hard. Dust scratched my throat. I didn't do it on purpose. No one ever does, the Beta said. He scraped a hand down his face, tired all the way to his bones. His bond, whatever it was, it's gone. You're all that's keeping him upright. Guilt is a flavor, bitter at the back of the tongue. It rose up like bile, and I wanted to insist that I was nobody, that I could vanish between one breath and the next. But Cade's chest lifted on a breath that matched mine, and the tiniest tremor in his hands went quiet. Okay, I said, before I could think of a clever way out. I'll stay. For how long? The Beta asked. Not forever, I said. The word tasted like a lie and a prayer. Cade's mouth shaped something that could have been a laugh in a different world. Long enough, he said, and the gravel gentled. Sirens far off, the masked men gone. The alley slowly returning to itself. Brick, graffiti, the grit of a city that's seen everything and still pretends surprise. I took 2 careful steps into the space his pack had cleared and found the distance that didn't make anyone flinch. 2 feet. No closer. Close enough that when I breathed, his shoulders dropped a fraction and his eyes steadied. I kept my hands where everyone could see them. This is temporary, I told myself, as much as anyone else. I'm a placeholder, a doorstop, a necessary inconvenience. The Beta snorted, not unkindly. Whatever helps you sleep. Cade didn't blink. You stay, he said again, as if saying it twice would stitch the world tighter. I nodded, because even a coward can be brave for an hour. Only for a little while, I added quietly. No one believed me, least of all me. The house wasn't a house. It was a fortress pretending to be one. Stone and timber built like permanence. Long halls that carried echoes too well. Windows too tall to feel safe behind. A hunter's lodge turned pack seat, every mounted head and heavy rug reminding me that prey never gets a vote. They led me in like contraband. Cade was half conscious, his weight supported between 2 of his men. But his eyes kept finding me as if the act alone kept him tethered. The rest of the pack smelled like iron and mistrust. I could feel their restraint like teeth grazing the back of my neck. Here? One of them growled as the door shut behind us. "You're bringing her here?" "She's the only thing keeping him upright," the beta, Scarjaw, always watchful, snapped back. "Unless you want to explain to the council why their alpha burned out in an alley." I wanted to say I wasn't keeping anyone upright. I wanted to say I'd be gone by morning. But Cade's breath hitched when my shoulder dipped back a step, and I felt the ripple of his panic like static in the air. My stomach sank. We crossed the threshold of a cavernous great room, antlers on the walls, fire unlit. In a hearth big enough to roast a bear, air sharp with pine polish and dust. Cade was lowered to a leather couch like it was a throne and a trap in one. His chest rose and fell hard. My scent reached him, calmed him by degrees I didn't understand. That's when she stormed in. Ella, I learned later, cut through the men like fire through tinder. Young, but her fury made her taller than any of them, dark hair in a braid swinging down her back, jaw tight enough to crack teeth. The moment her gaze found me, it sharpened into a blade. "You!" she spat. "What are you doing in our home?" I froze. "Trust me, I didn't ask to." "You think you can just replace her?" Her voice hit the rafters. "You think you can walk in here and—" "She didn't." The beta tried, but Ella wasn't hearing it. I bristled, too tired to play target practice. "I'm not replacing anyone. I didn't sign up for this. I was just what?" She took a step closer, eyes gleaming. "Just spreading your scent where it doesn't belong? Just tearing apart what's left of him? You don't even know what you've done." That last part landed too close to truth. I clamped my mouth shut. Behind us, Cade stirred. A low sound rumbling out of his chest. Not words, warning. His gaze flickered toward his sister, then latched onto me. His hand twitched, reaching through the haze for something he couldn't name. Ella's expression cracked at that. Pain flashed through her rage, a grief so raw I almost stepped back. But it hardened again, sharper. "He should hate you." "Maybe he does," I said quietly, "but I'm still the one keeping him breathing." Her lips pressed white. She spun on her heel and stormed out, braid lashing like punctuation. The silence she left was worse than her fury. The pack settled Cade upstairs, second floor, wide bedroom with heavy beams and curtains thick enough to choke sunlight. I lingered near the doorway, half expecting someone to shove me out. No one did. Every time I shifted, his head turned toward me. Night fell heavy and cold. I couldn't sleep. Not in the wingback chair pulled against the far wall. Not with the low growl rolling from his throat every time his body seized. He twisted under the sheets, fighting something I couldn't see. The air smelled of grief and wolf and the brittle snap of control. When he jolted upright, teeth bared, I nearly bolted. His eyes were wild, gray gone to storm. One of his men reached for the door, but Cade's gaze snagged on me instead. I should have run. I didn't. My feet moved me to the bedside before my brain caught up. I raised my hands, empty, harmless, and touched his wrist. Just skin to skin. The effect was instant. The growl cut off like a switch. His chest shuddered, breath catching, then slowed. His shoulders dropped. The storm in his eyes didn't vanish, but it ebbed, waves receding. The beta's voice came low from the doorway. "You see? Only you." I didn't answer. My throat was tight. Cade's hand turned under mine, not gripping, just anchoring. His eyes, less storm now, more searching, held mine until the tremors eased. And then, finally, he sank back against the pillows. The kind of collapse that comes only when there's no fight left. I stayed until his breathing evened, because every time I thought of leaving, his fingers twitched as if reaching for something already gone. "This isn't what I wanted," I whispered into the darkness. Maybe to him. Maybe to myself. I didn't ask for this. I don't even know what this is. The house didn't answer. Only the weight of his presence, heavy as the stone walls around us, kept me there. Enemy in the house, I thought bitterly. And the worst part? The enemy was me. The great room looked different in daylight. The fire was lit now, orange glow rolling over heavy beams and darker shadows. The mounted antlers stared down like a jury. I kept to the farthest corner of the rug, arms folded tight, telling myself it was safer to look unimpressed than terrified. Across from me, the old man in the chair regarded me with eyes that had seen more storms than most of the pack put together. Marcus. I'd overheard his name whispered with reverence. His presence was quiet but not weak, never that. The chair with its black wheels didn't diminish him. If anything, it added weight to the way he leaned forward, elbows resting on the armrests like a general considering the battlefield. "You don't look dangerous," he said finally, voice warm, almost amused. "But neither does a match until you strike it." I blinked. Not sure if that's supposed to be a compliment. "It's supposed to be a truth," he answered. "And truths rarely flatter." The fire snapped. My chest tightened. I wanted to say again that I hadn't done anything on purpose, that I wasn't a threat, not really. But Marcus's gaze pressed into me with patience, waiting for me to stop rehearsing denials and listen. He nodded toward the ceiling, where Cade was still resting. "You steadied him last night. No one else could. By accident." The words came fast. Defensive. Most bridges are built out of accidents, storms, floods, the need to cross. His smile was faint, edged with wisdom and resignation. But once they're there, they carry the weight, don't they? I let out a shaky laugh. "So what? I'm a bridge now? The only one through this storm." He tapped the armrest once. "You didn't ask for it. Doesn't matter. He's holding on because you're holding." My mouth was dry. I hated the way my throat worked around the words. I can't be his replacement." "No one asked you to be," Marcus said gently. "A bond like his, it's gone. There's no replacing that. What you are is different. Temporary, maybe. Necessary, certainly." The word temporary echoed too hard. I latched onto it. "Good. Because I won't stay forever. I'll stay until he doesn't need me anymore. That's it." His eyes softened, as if he'd already heard the lie I hadn't meant to tell. "Long enough," he murmured. Later, Cade came down. He moved stiffly, shoulders still heavy with something invisible, but his eyes were clearer than last night, storm breaking apart, pieces of sky showing through. He sank onto the couch opposite me, exhaled like it cost him effort, and glanced at Marcus. "You're enjoying this," Cade muttered. Marcus smiled faintly. "Your dramatics?" "A little." Cade rolled his eyes, then finally let them land on me. "And you? Still here?" I raised an eyebrow. "Disappointed? Surprised?" he said. His voice was rough but steadier than before. "Most people run the second they realize what I am." I shrugged, forcing my tone casual. "I tried running once. Didn't go great." The corner of his mouth twitched. "Your timing's terrible. Your gratitude's worse," I shot back. For a beat, silence. Then, he huffed. Not a laugh exactly, but close enough to make Marcus lean back, satisfied. My chest tightened in a way I didn't like. Not fear. Something else. Something reckless. That night, in the quiet after everyone drifted away, I sat in front of the fire alone. My mind replayed Marcus's words, the only bridge through the storm. I'd never been anyone's bridge. I'd been baggage, burden, mistake. And yet, Cade's gaze earlier had been almost alive. Not healed, not whole, but aware in a way that had nothing to do with pity. Guilt sat heavy on one shoulder. I had destroyed something sacred to him, even if not by choice. But on the other shoulder, uncomfortably close, was a strange relief. He was breathing steadier because of me. And that made me feel something I hadn't in years. Necessary. I pressed my forehead into my hands, whispering to myself, "Temporary. Just temporary. Don't make it anything else." The fire didn't answer, but the warmth crept closer all the same. The house fell into the kind of hush that only old places manage, where every beam and floorboard remembers the weight of the day and groans softly under it. Past midnight, the corridors were shadows and lamplight, and I should have been asleep, or gone. I told myself more than once that leaving would be smarter, cleaner, but my feet carried me toward Cade's room instead. The door was half open, the lamp inside turned low. His scent met me before the sight of him did. Sharp edges dulled by exhaustion, grief braided with wolf and iron. Cade lay sprawled across the wide bed, shirt clinging damp from sweat, jaw clenched hard enough to break bone. His hands twisted the sheets into knots, and the sound coming from his chest was not quite human. Nightmares. I hovered in the doorway, spine pressed to the frame. Every instinct screamed to stay away. This wasn't my place, wasn't my fight. I could let him battle his demons alone. Then he lurched upright with a strangled noise, eyes wild, breath tearing ragged through his lungs. The lamp's faint glow caught in them. Gray turned storm, unfocused and dangerous. I should have run. Again. Instead, I stepped inside. Cade. My voice was small against the silence, swallowed by it. He didn't hear me. Or if he did, it only drove him further into the storm. His chest heaved, fists curling like he was about to fight ghosts that refused to stay down. Hey. I tried again, closer this time. It's not real, it's not... Still nothing. His body shook with something deeper than fear, something that had no name. My pulse hammered. I knew the others would come if I called, but I also knew what Marcus had told me. No one else can pull him back. So I crossed the room and sat on the edge of the bed. My hand hovered over his arm, hesitation thick as smoke. Then, before I could overthink it, I touched him. Just skin to skin. His reaction was immediate. His growl broke off. His body jolted, then stilled, as if that single point of contact anchored him. His breath faltered, slowed, reshaped itself around the rhythm of mine. My throat tightened. I should have pulled away, told myself this wasn't safe. But the way his shoulders eased, the way his grip on the sheets loosened, like I was turning a key in a locked door, kept me still. Easy, I whispered, though the word was more for me than him. He slumped back against the pillows, eyes darting, unfocused but searching. His gaze snagged on me. For a heartbeat, I thought he'd look right through me again, like before, but he didn't. He looked at me, not as anchor, not as accident, just me. It was too much, too sharp. I swallowed hard and smoothed the hair damp across his temple before I could stop myself. My fingers lingered longer than they should have, trailing across his hairline. His breathing steadied, the tremors eased. The gray storm in his eyes dimmed to something human again. And I sat there, caught between fear and something else I didn't want to name. I'd touched him first. That was the part that burned. I hadn't been forced. Hadn't been cornered. I'd chosen it. And it hadn't destroyed me. He made a low sound, half sigh, half question, and his hand twitched near mine. Not grasping, not demanding. Just close enough that if I shifted even an inch, our fingers would touch. I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I leaned closer, enough that my scent curled around us both. I could feel the way it wrapped into him, quieting whatever storm still clung. The way his chest rose easier. The way his jaw unclenched. The silence stretched, heavy but not suffocating. I realized then that he was falling asleep, not restless, not fighting, but truly drifting. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked at peace. I stayed. Even though the door was open, even though nothing held me there but choice. My hand rested against his arm as his breathing deepened, as the lines of tension smoothed from his face. I watched his lashes lower, his mouth soften, the exhaustion take him. And I hated myself for how it felt. Because it was relief. Because it was warmth. Because it was something dangerously close to comfort. I leaned back, barely daring to move, and whispered into the dim lamp glow, "This isn't forever." But his fingers shifted once more, brushing close enough to make the air spark. And in the silence of the night, I wasn't sure if I believed myself. The courtyard behind the house opened onto the tree line, like an invitation and a warning. Stone walls bled into forest shadows, branches clawing at the sky. I had slipped outside for air, for distance, for the illusion of freedom. The cold bit sharp against my skin, but it was cleaner than the stale weight of the house. I wasn't alone for long. "You still breathe too loud." The voice came from the trees, smooth as smoke, threaded with a grin I remembered before I saw him. Les stepped into the light like he'd been waiting there for hours. Tall, lean, every line of him honed for running or striking. His eyes caught the moon, amber, with the kind of sly amusement that never asked permission. I froze. "You, me," he confirmed, teeth flashing. "Still running, I see." The world tilted. Childhood came back in fragments. Blood on bark, my ankle twisted, strangers closing in, and then him. A boy then, wild and sharp, dragging me out from under a hunter's snare and laughing like danger was a game. I'd never forgotten. "What are you doing here?" My voice came out smaller than I liked. "Passing through." He shrugged, but his gaze flicked toward the house, though it seems fate's been busy while I wasn't looking. "You've tied yourself to the Alpha everyone's whispering about." I didn't tie myself to anyone. His grin sharpened. Funny. That's not how it smells. I bristled, but he softened the jab with a tilt of his head. Relax, little saint. I'm not here to cut the cord, just to remind you. Remind me of what? That you didn't leave your old pack because you were weak. His tone turned low, serious in a way it never used to be. You left because staying would have killed you. Because they would have used you until nothing was left. That's not cowardice. That's survival. The words hit too deep. My lungs burned like I'd been holding my breath for years. Cade's footsteps on stone made me flinch. He emerged from the house, shirt loose, eyes wary but steadier than I'd ever seen them. His gaze darted between us, reading the air the way alphas do. Friend of yours? His voice was quiet, edged. Something like that, Liz said smoothly. I pulled her out of a trap once. Seems I'm late to the second rescue. Cade's eyes locked on me then. You never said. I hated the heat in my throat. It's not something you announce over dinner. Tell me now, he pressed. And I did. Words spilled. How I'd grown up under a pack that saw Omegas as property. How they'd branded obedience into every moment of my life. How running hadn't been bravery but necessity. How Liz had found me once. Torn me free from teeth that would have ended me. How I'd never stopped running since. Cade didn't interrupt. His face shifted. Anger, not at me, but at what I'd endured. Respect, quiet and unexpected, softened the steel in his expression. Before I could absorb it, Ella appeared, as if pulled by scent or instinct. Her eyes narrowed, catching the intimacy of the moment. Of course, she hissed. Of course you'd bring your tragic little story here. Win sympathy. Pretend you matter. Ella, Cade started, but she cut him off. She's not her? Her voice cracked against the night. She'll never be her. And every second she sits in this courtyard, you let her steal what's left of our sister in bond. The words struck like claws. I staggered back, bile in my throat. I'm not trying to replace. But you are, Ella snapped. Whether you mean to or not, look at him. She pointed, trembling. He already looks at you like. Her voice broke. Like she never existed. Silence pressed down. Cade's jaw tightened, but his eyes never left mine. Not denial, not correction. Just that steady, storm-worn gaze. And it undid me. Because in Ella's fury was a truth I couldn't escape. Maybe I was only filling a void. A convenient anchor. A placeholder in a bed that still smelled of someone else's memory. I wrapped my arms around myself, forcing the words out. Maybe she's right. Maybe I am just a replacement. The forest swallowed the confession, but Cade's sharp inhale said he'd heard. Les's grin faded into something older, sadder. No one contradicted me. Not yet. And the night felt colder than it had when I first stepped outside. The council chamber felt more like a courtroom than a room for decisions. Long wooden table, tall back chairs, fire burning low in the stone hearth. The air smelled of pine, smoke, and tension so thick it pressed against my skin. I sat near the far wall, every gaze like a knife angled my way. Cade stood at the head of the table. His posture was iron, but I could see the exhaustion tugging at his edges. The pack had gathered. Betas, elders, voices that mattered. And every one of them wanted me gone. She doesn't belong here, one of them said flatly. She broke the bond. Whether she meant to or not, the cost is the same. She's a danger. She's a stain. The words stacked heavy, each one darker than the last. I kept my face still, but my stomach twisted. I hadn't asked for this. I wanted to scream it into their teeth. Instead, I clenched my fists and let them carve me with their stares. Cade's voice cut through at last, low but hard enough to make them listen. Enough. Silence fell. Even the fire seemed to shrink back. She stays, Cade said, steady. A ripple of outrage rolled around the table. You can't. She's poison. She'll destroy what's left. Cade's hand struck the wood once, not loud, but final. She stays. He didn't look at me. He didn't soften the words, but the weight in his voice pinned me in place. The pack bristled, but they didn't challenge further. Not directly. Marcus wheeled himself forward from the side, his voice mild but cutting through the aftermath. You all talk of bonds as if they're chains. But a bond isn't a sentence, it's a choice. Always has been. One of the elders scoffed. Choice? Tell that to the Alpha's grief. Marcus's eyes glinted. I'm telling it to you. He's still standing. Because of her. You'd rather bury him in your old stories than let him decide what to do with his own life? The room quieted again, grudging and restless. Cade dismissed them soon after, his authority making it clear the discussion was finished. But I felt the aftershocks in every glance they threw me as they filed out. By the time the chamber emptied, I was shaking from holding myself together. Only Cade and I remained. The door closed heavy behind the last elder. You didn't have to do that, I said, words sharp, defensive. Yes, he answered, steady. I did. I spun on him. Why? To prove you're still Alpha? To remind them you can hold on to whatever scraps are left? I'm not. My voice cracked, and I hated it. I'm not meant to be here. His eyes narrowed, storm gray and steady. You think I don't see what you're doing? You're trying to talk yourself out of it. Out of me. I flinched. Because it's the truth. You can't love me, Cade. I'm an accident, a mistake. I ruined you. The words hurt more than I expected, even as I spoke them. For a heartbeat, silence. Then, his voice, rough and quiet. You think I don't see you? You think I don't know the difference between what I lost and what's standing right in front of me? I blinked, throat tight. An accident? He stepped closer, slow but deliberate. No. The mistake is you believing I'm searching for a replacement. I'm not. My heart slammed hard enough to ache. I tried for deflection, sarcasm, anything. But all I managed was a whisper. Then, what am I? His gaze held mine, unyielding, the one who kept me alive when nothing else could. The one they call an anchor, the one I call necessary. The fire cracked behind us. The words sank into me like heat, dangerous and steady all at once. I wanted to argue. I wanted to throw up walls so high no wolf could leap them. But his presence was too close, his eyes too steady. And somewhere beneath the fear, something warmer stirred, traitorous and alive. I shook my head. This can't last. Maybe not, he said simply. But stop pretending it isn't real. Silence stretched. My chest rose and fell with his, the air between us too thin, too charged. I turned away before I could betray myself completely. My voice came low, almost broken. This isn't forever. Behind me, his reply was quiet but certain. It doesn't have to be forever to be true. And for the first time, I hated how much I wanted to believe him. The morning light was too honest. It spilled across the floorboards, pale gold catching on the dust motes that floated in the empty room like confessions. My bag sat open on the chair, clothes folded with the precision of someone pretending not to shake. The house was quiet. No footsteps, no voices, no pull of Cade's unrest dragging me to his side. Because he didn't need me anymore. I told myself that was good. That was what I'd wanted all along. Marcus had said Cade was stable now, his strength returning, the worst of the madness behind him. His nightmares had dulled. His breathing no longer hitched unless I was near. My presence wasn't necessary anymore. And if I wasn't necessary, then I was nothing. I set the pen down on the small desk, staring at the note I'd written. Short, sharp, deliberately impersonal. You don't need me anymore. That's how it should be. I'll be gone before noon. I hated the way my chest ached reading it back. The floor creaked. I froze, then turned. Cade stood in the doorway. His eyes caught the light, gray steady now, no storm behind them, only something I couldn't name. He looked at the bag, at the note, at me. So, that's it? His voice was low even, but something dangerous coiled underneath. You were just going to leave. I swallowed. You're stable. You don't need an anchor anymore. That was the deal. His jaw tightened. He stepped into the room, each movement measured. The deal? Yes. My voice cracked, but I pushed on. You survived. You don't need me. And I forced a laugh, brittle and sharp. I was never more than a placeholder, Cade. You know it. I know it. It's over. I grabbed the note, crumpled it, shoved it into the bag. If I kept moving, maybe I could outrun the way my throat burned. Stop? The command in his voice rooted me to the floor. I turned, slowly. He was closer now, eyes locked on mine, voice rough as gravel. You think I held you here because I needed a tether? I blinked, unable to breathe. He shook his head once, deliberate. I don't need an anchor anymore. I don't need saving. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice gentled in a way that undid me completely. What I need is you. My breath caught. You, he said again, firmer this time, as if the word itself was a vow. Not your scent, not your presence, not the accident that bound us. You. The air between us cracked. My chest felt like it might split with the weight of it. You can't mean that, I whispered, shaking. You can't. I'm not her. I'm not anyone's miracle. I'm just... His hand lifted, not touching yet, but close enough that I could feel the heat of it. You're the one who stayed when you could have run. The one who reached for me when I couldn't find myself. The one who looked at me, not the Alpha, not the wreck, but me. Do you understand? That's not a mistake. That's the only real thing I've got left. Tears blurred my vision before I could stop them. I don't know how to do this, I admitted, voice breaking. His hand finally touched mine, gentle, grounding. Neither do I, he said softly. But we'll figure it out. Together. The dam cracked. A sob escaped, sharp and humiliating. But he didn't flinch. He just stepped closer until I could feel the steady rhythm of his breathing against mine, until my forehead rested against his chest and the walls I'd built gave way. The note crumpled further in my fist. Meaningless now. I closed my eyes, let the tears fall, and for the first time in years I didn't feel like I was running. I felt like I'd stopped, like I'd been caught, and it didn't feel like a cage. It felt like freedom. The garden was still damp with dew. Every blade of grass jeweled under the pale light of dawn. The air smelled of earth and pine and something softer, like the first breath after a long storm. I hadn't realized how heavy silence could be until it finally lightened, and Cade stood beside me as if the weight had finally slid off his shoulders. He looked different. Not healed, not entirely, but steady in a way I hadn't seen before. His chest rose easy, his eyes clear. The storm was gone. For the first time, I believed it might not come back. I hugged my arms around myself, watching the horizon blush pink. So, I said, trying for casual, this is the part where I walk away, right? The noble exit. You get your life back, your pack calms down, and I go vanish into the next corner of the world. Cade's laugh was low, almost amused. You really still think I'd let you walk away? I'm saying it's an option, not one I'm interested in. I turned my head, met his gaze. He wasn't teasing. His mouth curved faintly, but the steadiness in his eyes was the same one that had stopped me in the empty room yesterday, the one that had unraveled every wall I'd tried to build. I don't need an anchor anymore, Nora, he said quietly, but I do need you. That's different. Something in my chest squeezed hard. I forced a smirk because humor was safer than honesty. You're very bad at letting people go, you know. Good thing I don't plan to let this one go. Before I could find an answer, a voice cut through the garden. Unbelievable. Ella. She strode across the grass with her braids swinging, arms crossed tight, eyes sharp, as knives, but her mouth held the faintest twitch of something that wasn't pure fury. Morning to you too, I said carefully. Don't. She snapped. Then, after a beat, I still think this is insane. You... She jabbed a finger in my direction, breaking in here, wrecking everything, and somehow ending up at his side. Technically, I didn't break in. She ignored me. But... Her jaw tightened. If he's breathing easier, if he looks like this again... Her eyes flicked to Cade, softening just a fraction before hardening again. Then maybe you're not the disaster I thought. I blinked. Was that almost a compliment? Don't get used to it, Ella snapped, but the flush at her cheeks betrayed her. Cade's lips curved. Careful, Nora. That's the closest she's come to approval in years. Shut up, Ella muttered, spinning on her heel. But as she stormed off, I caught the faintest smirk tugging at her mouth. The silence she left was lighter than before. Cade slipped a glance at me, one brow arched. She'll come around, he said. Or poison my tea, I countered. Depends on the day. That tugged a laugh out of me, shaky but real. And suddenly the air between us didn't feel fragile anymore. It felt alive. Cade reached for my hand, slow, deliberate. His fingers brushed mine, and the spark of it startled me, not like the frantic tether from before, but something gentler. Something chosen. You're stubborn, he murmured. Too stubborn to ever be just an anchor. I tilted my chin. Is that your way of calling me difficult? His smile deepened. It's my way of saying you're more than what saved me. You're what keeps me here. The world seemed to pause. Garden, dawn, air. I felt the truth in it. Heavy and terrifying and perfect. And for once, I didn't run from it. I squeezed his hand back, steady despite the tremor in my chest. He doesn't believe in soulbonds, I whispered, voice low, almost to myself. But I still broke him. And hell with it. I put him back together. The words hung between us, brighter than the sunrise. And Cade, storm-torn, steady now, smiled like he believed every syllable.